Hi, welcome to How to Have a Wedding as Individual as You Are, the podcast. Based on my book of the same name, this podcast is here to help you have the wedding of your dreams and not the wedding that other people are putting pressure on you to have. I'm Ross, I'm a wedding photographer passionate about embracing diversity and equality in the wedding industry, and each week I'm going to be talking to different experts to help you plan the wedding of your dreams. So regardless of who you're marrying, where you're marrying and how old you're going to be when you get married, sit back, relax and find out how to have a wedding as individual as you are. Before we get into the final episode of Series 1 of the podcast, I'd just like to take a second to thank all of my guests over the past few months who have provided so much useful and valuable information to help you guys have the wedding of your dreams. And I'd just like to thank everyone who has downloaded, listened and gave incredible feedback for the podcast so far. I can't believe how many downloads I've had for each episode. The listening numbers have grown week on week, which is fantastic. I'd love for that to increase even more when I record Series 2 in the new year. So if you have a minute to just head over to whatever platform you listen to your podcast on and rate and review this podcast. It helps other people to find it. It helps spread the word and it helps other couples to have the wedding of their dreams. So thank you once again to everyone who has been on the podcast, who has downloaded an episode of the podcast. It's been a really fantastic few months and I will be back very, very soon. But right now, sit down, grab a cup of tea and listen to the final episode in Series 1, all about a topic very, very close to my heart. I hope you enjoy. Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of How to Have a Wedding as Individual as You Are, the podcast. Today's topic is very close to my heart as we're going to be talking about same-sex weddings and LGBTQ equality, not just in the wedding industry, but in society in general. And I'm talking to someone who's really as passionate as I am about it today, and that's Ava. So Ava, introduce yourself and tell us about your business or businesses.
Thank you, Ross. It's really great to be here, first of all.
Lovely to finally meet you.
Yes, it's been quite a while. So I am Ava Corwin and I run LGBTQ Equality Weddings, and we will soon be launching equality businesses.
Fantastic.
We have one mission predominantly, and that is to build a community of businesses who are committed to looking at their language and how we can be more inclusive in the language that we use to create safe spaces for couples where they don't need to ask if the business is okay with their identity. Practically speaking, Equality Weddings is a website that provides a list of suppliers who work with us on their language. So it's a first point of call, in my humble opinion.
No, it is. It definitely is.
For couples to start their wedding planning process.
Fantastic. So yeah, as I said, it's really nice to meet you. Sent a lot of emails and chatted, and we share the same passions about equality and diversity. And obviously you've read my book and I've been on your website, and so it's nice to be here in person and to share lots of advice and tips. So today in the podcast we're going to share our own experiences of being LGBTQ or LGBTQ supportive, or an ally, which I think is an important word that we're going to discuss later. We're going to talk about some of the challenges and frustrations that might be faced by LGBTQ couples when planning a wedding, and share some tips and advice for overcoming these. And we're going to point you in the direction of some resources that can inspire and empower you to have the same-sex wedding you dream of. So we're going to ask a few questions of Ava now. I put her in the hot seat and no pressure. So tell us a little bit more. You've briefly described what it is and what it's about, but tell us a little bit more about LGBTQ Equality Weddings, how it came about and what you're hoping to achieve through the project or the business.
Sure. So originally it was supposed to be a side project for me. was a wedding planner
Okay.
at the time. And I saw a void in the industry, and also I heard from a lot of couples asking the question, do you do gay weddings?
Okay.
And I thought, this void needs to be filled.
Yes.
Couples shouldn't have to ask
No,
this question.
exactly. I've seen it at wedding fairs. I've seen couples go around to every supplier saying, do you do, you know, Mrs. and Mrs. signs?
Yes.
Do you photograph same-sex weddings? I saw them go around every stand, and it broke my heart, actually.
Yeah, and you see some couples blushing, you see discomfort, you can see the anxiety as well of having to be in that situation where it's like, will I be welcomed here?
Yeah, I think that's so true, and I think I've spoken to a couple of my gay friends, and we've all agreed that, you know, unless you're a celebrity, you don't just come out once in your life, you're constantly coming out. So, you know, for me, I came out in my previous jobs and it all went well, but even now I go to a new networking event, or, you know, I meet couples that are booking me for their wedding, and, you know, it's not something that I feel I should have to shout about or say anything, but it's also something that might come up in conversation, that you want to know that the people you're working with or networking are okay with you being you.
Exactly.
Really.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's still a void, and it shouldn't be a void.
It shouldn't be. Exactly. So that was the idea, to give a visual initially, which was a badge or a logo, which we know the wedding industry love.
Love a logo.
Yeah, exactly. And the plan was for it to organically grow over time, but it was overwhelmingly well received. And I realised quite quickly that I had to choose between my planning business or Equality Weddings.
Yeah.
Sorry, because I'm the type of person that needs to be 100% committed to everything that I do.
Yes,
and I'm
that's
only
fair
one
enough.
person. So Equality Weddings, is more closely aligned with who I am as a person and my passions and my values. And what that led to was having more time and more resources to really work with the suppliers that are now members, and to go beyond a visual logo in the footer of our websites, and to actually look at our language and how unintentionally a lot of the time it might exclude.
Yeah, that's
people.
so true. And like you said, even as, you know, I'm a gay man and I still get my language wrong sometimes.
Of course,
you know, and you say things, and even recording this podcast, I was speaking about clothing, and I briefly said, oh, you know, guys in their suits and girls in their dresses, and of course, you know, it can be either or. And afterwards I thought, oh, that's such a silly thing to say. And obviously I'm, you know, really inclusive and all about diversity, but people make mistakes, but it's just about helping people to learn the impact that language has.
That has. And also we need to retrain our brains. No one is doing anything wrong.
No.
Here. Unless it's an act of prejudice. No one's doing anything wrong. We're doing what we've been taught to do for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years.
Yes.
And what we want to do is help people realise that there's a safe space to try to get it right, to keep evolving.
Yeah, and it's okay to ask. I never have a problem if people genuinely don't understand something about my sexuality or my lifestyle, or you know, as long as it's not too prying or too personal. I don't get offended by people asking, because that's how we learn, and that's how people become more open-minded, and you know, so I don't begrudge that. So it is having that forum where people can do that.
They can ask that question, and that's why we want to be that forum, because sometimes with our wedding planning couples, it's not always appropriate to ask, because we don't want to other people, and we don't want to pry. But if you have a business that's with you in the wedding industry, that's taking the time to collect the resources and do the research, then you can ask, because you're not going to personally pry.
Exactly.
And you can do that in the comfort of your own business or your own home if you're a small independent business. Without causing any upset. So just going back to your question, the latter part, what are you hoping to achieve as part of this project? And I think it's really important to say that all we want to do is make a small impact on the heteronormative industry and just help cover the basics. so businesses can be more profitable, because that's ultimately what will happen.
Yeah.
You will attract more clients.
Absolutely.
And to help certain underrepresented sections of society feel more heard and represented. And really that's our primary goal.
Yeah, and to be inclusive, I think it's really important. And we spoke before we recorded about inclusivity, and my book was inclusive. It's applicable to same-sex couples, but transgender people, ethnic minorities. It was about everyone being able to be themselves. And I've deliberately, I'm really passionate about doing same-sex weddings, because obviously I'm in a same-sex relationship, and I love when a lot of couples, when they find out I am gay, there's that kind of visual sigh of relief almost. That I understand their story and some of their frustrations. But I deliberately don't, when I'm at a wedding fair, and I was at a wedding fair yesterday, and my stand is about diversity. It's not about, I've got to have one person of that skin colour and one person of that age. But, it's about love. And what's been nice since I've had, a really diverse stand, is that you get straight couples looking at a same-sex and saying, oh, I love that dress, or I love that shot, or, and people don't see the sexuality or the gender. They're just seeing love and identifying with that, which I think is a really powerful thing to be part of as well.
Absolutely agree. And this is the thing, it's not just about one token photograph to cover all your bases.
No.
It's about having a representative business, and that comes in all of the language that we use in written form and verbally.
Yeah.
And a whole host of different imagery. And when you see that in its authentic way, which you have achieved, people stop seeing.
Yes. I think that's, and that's the ultimate aim, isn't it? For people to stop seeing those things and look
at the flowers, and look at the setup, and look at the different photography styles, and to decide which elements from those suppliers they want beyond who they are and how they identify.
Exactly.
Sure.
Brilliant. So what has been the response, both positive and or negative, to what you've done so far?
Well, I've touched on the positivity already, in the sense that we launched in June, and I slept very little.
It's been crazy for you. I've watched it just explode.
It has, and it's wonderful. It really is wonderful, and it's heartwarming to know that there's a lot of well-intentioned, committed people and businesses out there. And long may that last. Now, obviously, I'm including yourself in that.
Thank you.
Because you are one of our members,
I am
our
indeed.
Esteemed members, our founding members, actually, which I'm proud to say. But of course, the flip side is there's always negativity. And it's really just about how you deal with that. And I think kindness prevails in every situation.
It does.
So really, I just want to touch briefly on tokenism, which we did just mention, a token photograph or a token logo in the footer. It's a big problem in our industry, and it's something that's really easy to fall into if you're not aware of it.
Yes.
And it's not always blameworthy. It's just a lack of insight or knowledge or education.
Absolutely.
So that occurred to us quite early on, because our services were free.
Yeah.
And we realised that for our credibility, and to make sure that we didn't present a supplier that didn't understand the issues and challenges that our couple subscribers or readers face, that we needed to work more closely with our suppliers and our members. But it is something that you need to manage sensitively and educate on, because it's really just about everyone feeling comfortable and sure of who they are and what they supply and how open they are.
Yeah, I think that's important. And I think, you don't have to be part of the LGBTQ community to be a fantastic ally.
Exactly.
And I said that in the book, it's not about, as a gay person, I shouldn't just have to photograph gay people. And if you're getting married to someone of the same sex, you don't have to find a gay florist and, a gay photographer. Sometimes, it helps because You understand the story or the the challenges that they're facing, or certain things resonate. And people do come to me and they said, well, we wanted to keep it in the community or support LGBTQ businesses, and that's understandable. But I think it's just about having a mindset, and I think it's about not making assumptions, which I say in the book, because there's so many assumptions that are made about me all the time, based on not just my sexuality but my age or my gender, and I've seen it when suppliers are chatting to couples, and it's well, I photographed a couple like you, or they did this, I expect you're going to do this, and it's that kind of language where straight away you're pigeonholing.
Yes.
And it's just being careful to see every couple, gay or straight, as a unique couple, and I think that's really important, and I think that's what you're really helping to do.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think you've hit the nail on the head. When you look at two people, you can assume they're a same-sex couple by how they choose to present themselves, or you can assume that they're a straight couple by how they choose. But you don't know.
No.
You don't know what their gender identity is, and you don't know that one part of that couple, they could be transgender.
Yeah.
But they could, we just don't know. So by assuming, you're limiting your ability to connect with that person.
Yeah.
But if you don't assume, and you empower, and what we want to encourage is suppliers to just wait. Don't assume, and wait to hear from your couples.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, and it should be led by the couples. Even again, it's you have to have a strong sense of what your business is about and the services you provide. But you have to be client-led and flexible to a certain point as well. If somebody asks for us, we want this style of photography, and if I don't do it, then I'll say, that's not really my style, you're better off elsewhere. But if they say, we really like this image, or we're doing this at that wedding, then fine, I'm happy to, try something new or fit with what works. I worked with a same-sex couple in the summer, and I did their pre-wedding shoot, and I think pre-wedding shoots are so important to get to know the couple. And I said, this is a lovely shot. What would look nice, or like to tidy up like your hands, you don't know what to do, you could hold hands. And I was like, would you like to hold hands? And they were like, no. And one girl said to the other, she said, don't you want to hold my hand? She said, when do we ever hold hands? And I said, well, if you don't, there's no point you doing it in a photograph. So it's just little things like that that's important, and just having that understanding. Because I think the other thing I was going to touch on a little bit is that so many people say to me, oh, do you need to specialise in same-sex weddings, or do you need like a separate website? And it'd be lovely to say no, and it's less of an issue than it was, but there are still challenges that the LGBTQ community face.
Yeah, of course.
I would say that 80% of the couples that I photographed this year have been happy to have their images on social media. The 20% that weren't happy were all LGBTQ for one reason or another, and I don't think that's a coincidence, and I think that says quite a lot still about the world we live in, whether it was because they weren't out at work, or they had family members that wouldn't be happy to see it, or they just didn't want it out there.
Or the fear. There's a real fear of discrimination still. And I live it, because my business is called LGBTQ Equality Weddings.
Absolutely.
And I receive hurtful, offensive emails randomly out of the blue. And why would a couple want to put a photo that shows them at their best, in love, on a really important day, committing to each other for the rest of their life, if there's a tiny chance of backlash?
Yeah.
Why would they? And this is why we're doing the language reviews, because a lot of suppliers have said, we want to appeal to LGBTQ plus couples, but we just haven't photographed a wedding yet, or the couples haven't been comfortable with us sharing their photos. Okay, well, you don't have the photos, you don't have the visual, but you have the power of language.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important, until we get to a time where all of us as individuals at least feel safe sharing the photograph.
It's about feeling safe, definitely. And something I always say, like I said, people that aren't part of the community or, and say, everything's okay now, there's loads of gay celebrities, you can get married, it's all legal, it's fine, there's gay people everywhere, or, whatever they say, is there really a need for this or to cater to specifically to that community? And like I said, there's less of an issue, but there's still a lot of work to do, with the language we use. Saying that, if somebody who is listening to this and they're not out, whether it's they're transgender or bisexual or whatever it is, I would say that coming out has been the best thing that's ever happened to me. So
I'm smiling. You can't see me, but I'm smiling.
It is. So I would say, if you're listening and we're talking that there's still a problem with people's language and there's still a lot for people to learn and there's changes that still need to occur in society, don't let that stop you from being who you are. Because, when I was 15, 16, 17, 18, in my small hometown, looking out my bedroom window on all the important birthdays and New Year, when I was too scared to make friends, too scared to drink, exhausted from hiding who I was, I used to look out my bedroom window, what would become of my life. I really couldn't imagine. I'd be sat here, having celebrated a 10-year anniversary with my boyfriend, being out to all my friends and family, having my own business that's based on diversity and equality, have written a book that helps people to be who they are. All that came about gradually from me accepting myself who I was and knowing that there are hundreds of thousands of people out there that will help and support you be who you are. So I just think that's a little bit off topic, but while we're talking about tokenism and things like that, it's really important to say that, what you're doing is really positive and is really important. But if you're listening and you're still scared to be yourself, don't be, because there's lots of people here that will help you.
Yeah, and will listen and will offer their own experience as well.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think to those who don't know yet, those people who identify as questioning, some people will be questioning their whole life.
Absolutely.
And that's okay too.
Yeah.
But the more of us that do kind of learn to be at peace with who we are and celebrate it, the more of a safe space we'll create together.
Yeah.
And I say this all the time when people suppliers buy merchandise from me, I'll write on the thank you note, the only way to true equality is together.
Yeah.
And that's true.
So true.
So if you're at home and you're listening and you're struggling to figure yourself out, well, we all are.
Yeah.
And we're with you.
Yeah.
And enjoy the journey, and know that you have friends in strangers as well.
Yeah, I think that's very true. There's so many people out there that have been where you are now. I think that's important. But even like we said, people who have got to the point where they're out and they're proud and they found the love of their life and now they're getting married.
Yay.
They still, like all couples getting married, where do they start? What can couples and suppliers as well expect when they visit your website and social media? What can they see and find out?
So when you visit the website, you will see a list of suppliers initially who really do want to get it right, in inverted commas.
Yeah.
They really want to try and understand, and a lot of them have already done an awful lot of work. And they spend time learning about LGBTQ plus issues, or just the issues and challenges that each unique individual might face.
Yeah.
And they try to make sure that their business is tailored to cater for everyone and empower everyone to be unique and individual. And I think as time goes on, you'll see that supplier list grow.
Yes.
And then you'll see that commitment to equality and the work that's been done in the background. You'll see that translate and trickle down into their own individual communities.
So true.
And as well, you'll also see our perks and discounts ebook, which you're a big part of, where our suppliers have offered a perk or a discount to couples to help them get started, because all of these important issues aside, weddings are expensive.
Oh, yeah.
Weddings are so expensive, and our suppliers are generous people, and they want to give something back. So you'll definitely see some offers there. And on social media, well, you'll see people like you. You'll see people like you.
Hopefully that's a good thing.
Yeah. You'll be represented as much as we can, and you'll see our work, and you'll see wedding inspiration. You'll see what's possible, and hopefully you'll be inspired.
Yeah, it's all about inspiration, and empowering's a really brilliant word to use, because I always say that when I do a consultation. It's about empowering people to have the wedding that they want, and putting the power in their hands, and not feeling dictated to by suppliers, but feeling like they're the ones in control.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's so wonderful about what you're doing, is putting people back in control of their own wedding, which is really important.
And we had a brief discussion before as well, and I say this all the time, that when you start the wedding planning process, you need to remember all you need is a registrar, 2 witnesses for the legalities, and two people, a couple in love. Yeah. And everything else is optional.
Yeah.
That you
and
get
a
to
bonus.
piece together. Yes, exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's really important. So yeah, we were going to ask you a little bit about some of the specific difficulties faced by LGBTQ couples planning a wedding. We touched on most of them: lack of representation in wedding media and marketing, and the non-inclusive language by suppliers, having to come out to vendors each time you are booking a service or making an inquiry. What are your thoughts and comments on that, and how are you trying to sort of break down some of those issues?
Well, I think the most obvious one is the hashtag that we introduced, and that's now a tagline of our business, and that's "You don't need to ask here."
Yeah.
So you know that the suppliers that work with us, you can call them, book them, email them, and you don't have to say, "Are you okay, I'm gay? Are you okay that I'm trans?" You don't need to ask the question.
No, it's a given.
Your welcome is a given. Like any straight, it will be like the experience of a straight couple when they go to a photographer and say, "Can you do my wedding on the 15th of November 2026?
Yeah.
You will have the same experience, and I hope that does something to kind of to tell couples that they don't need to come out to the suppliers that we work with. And
it takes an extra layer of stress and anxiety away when planning a wedding.
Exactly. And I think just looking at the lack of representation, which I think is an issue for all underrepresented groups, not just LGBTQ.
Totally.
I really believe that we have power in style shoots, and obviously this is more focused to suppliers than couples. But when we're marketing our business and we're investing our time and resources into creating that material, we can choose how representative that material is. And if we want to wear a logo in our footer that says that we're open and we're inclusive, well, let's show in different ways how we are,
that's so
and
true.
let's represent the couples that we're pitching our services
to,
and commit to that level of inclusivity beyond just words and just language.
And redefining, not even redefining, but re-representing what love looks like. I think is really important. If you're doing something like a styled shoot, then think about the models that you're going to be using and what you want to say. I think that's really, I know a lot of photographers, especially new up and coming photographers, that want to emulate a shoot they've seen before, or straight away they book the stereotypical model. And people, I've been on shoots with photographers that it's easy, like I don't have to pose them, they're just beautiful, and I'm like, that's great. That doesn't really.
What does beautiful mean?
Yeah, what does beautiful mean?
And is beautiful representative of the world that we're supplying to?
Exactly.
I think there's beauty's in the eye of the beholder, and I think media has such an impact on society. Massively. That we all have a responsibility to try and shape it. And the glossy magazines and the big wedding blogs, they might not pick you. But that's because there are a whole host of people who are producing these typical, let's say, heteronormative weddings, but the more of us that present more diverse material, then the less option they have.
Exactly.
Of sticking with what the heteronormative
exactly.
idea of
and what frustrates me is this idea that, you know, to be sort of high end, you know, weddings, you know, or fine art wedding photographer, you still have to stick to this stereotype of just like, you know, that quality isn't about skin tone or your weight or your sexuality. But you see it all the time, and that's what inspired my book. A lot of it was when I went to a wedding fair, and I say this in the book, you know, I wasn't exhibiting, I just went to look around, do a bit of research. So people thought I was getting married, and the way people spoke to me, the assumptions people made, the lack of diversity on display, you know, I didn't see anyone over about 30 in any image on any stand. I didn't see any same-sex couples. I saw very few ethnic minorities, you know, and it's in this day and age, there's no excuse to not be, you know, celebrating everyone. You know?
And it's also disingenuous because it's not reflective of the world that we live in, the streets that we walk down, and the people that we're trying to attract. And this is what I'm really keen to hit home with. If you're trying to attract everyone and you're trying to welcome everyone, and I know obviously all of the business coaches out there and all of the, you know, the business degrees that we all do, they say have your niche, have your target market. But even within your target market, there will be all genders, all orientations, you know, all different cultures and races and religions. So even within the demographic that you're choosing to focus on, and you know, there's so much we can do together.
Absolutely, yeah, and it is redefining, you know, and I talked a bit earlier to you before the podcast about, you know, when I struggled to come out, I think it was because I didn't identify with what was a representation of gay men at the time. So I, you know, was taught, you know, I would go out in London and I would enjoy clubbing, and I met my partner there, so it was, you know, result, you know. But I didn't go, you know, every week and think this is where I belong, all these people are like me. I would go back to university in the week and go out with my straight group of friends, and I'd have fun and feel like this isn't quite my tribe either. And as I get older, you know, since I found that it's, you know, your sexuality and who you are is not linked to what you wear or the music you listen to, or, you know, how sexually promiscuous you want to be or don't want to be. You know, you can just be you. As I get older, I feel that I've more of a responsibility, I'd say, to redefine what being gay is, or just show people that it doesn't have to define you at all.
Or be any one thing.
Any one thing, exactly.
Yeah, I have, just leading on from that as well, I have one of my closest friends actually who identifies as male and identifies as a gay man. He, and I won't mention his name, but he doesn't feel comfortable being branded under the umbrella of LGBTQ+.
No.
He doesn't feel that that's his community. He doesn't have anything against that community, but he just doesn't feel like he needs to be labelled. He just wants to be who he is, loving who he chooses to love, and he sees the power in communities.
Absolutely.
And the community, lots of different communities, LGBTQ+ being one, you know, it gives the communities a presence and a platform to speak about important issues, but not everyone feels comfortable in the box that we put them in.
No, and that's very true. And I think, you know, I don't go to Pride every year, and it's not that I'm anti-Pride. I've never really had the opportunity. I would love to go. I'd love to be part of it. And the one time actually was after the Orlando shootings, and I think a couple of days later everyone got together in London. And I really felt I should have been there. I felt like that was where I needed to be at the time. And had I known, I would have gone. Sometimes when I see certain Pride celebrations, I don't see myself. I find it's overly sexualised for one reason or another. And again, that's not me and it's not my partner. That's not to say we're anti-Pride, and the importance of Pride politically is, you know, it's done amazing things for the community. But again, not everyone identifies with the same representation.
Exactly.
And again, going back to if you're coming out or struggling or questioning, you don't have to identify with a certain group of people to still be able to be who you are. Yeah. And it is just, I hope that just me being me, I live with my partner, I do my job, happen to be gay, it's part of who I am, but it's not everything. I hope that, other people see that and go, oh, that's quite cool. I didn't know I could do that. I didn't know I didn't have to, conform. Yeah.
So even in the groups that, are fighting convention, there's still a pressure to conform.
There is. And I think that's really important to say without being controversial, but there is.
Exactly. And maybe some people will see that as controversial, and it's not to say that everyone is entitled to their own opinion. Of course they are. But what we want to promote is you don't have to conform in any community in the world. You just be yourself and celebrate yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And by being that, you'll find your tribe. You'll find the people that love you for who you are. You'll find your friendship groups. You'll find your purpose in life and career and whatever you want to do. But it starts with being yourself. And that's why, on the back of my book, I put, don't dare to be different, dare to be yourself. Because everyone can try and be different.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean you're being authentic. It's much harder sometimes to just be yourself. And I've had a friend in the past who struggled with their sexuality, and they would go to the other extreme because they didn't want to do anything that was stereotypically gay. So even if they wanted to, they would miss out on opportunities or certain things because they didn't want to be seen as stereotypically gay. And it's just, that's the opposite end of the spectrum as to thinking, I'm gay, I've got to do all of these things. There's some things, there's films I watch or programs I love that people say, oh, that's, I love Will and Grace, I love Ab Fab, and people go, oh, that's a bit stereotypical. My boyfriend dyes his hair, but then he spends a weekend under a car doing his, doing all that, doing all that. So, it's, by being yourself, sometimes you'll fit a stereotype, sometimes you won't. Don't worry about stereotypes.
And it's having that comfort and confidence to not. I mean, I identify as a woman, but I wake up and some days and feel more masculine, and I don't want to wear a dress that's more feminine. I want to wear a jumper and jeans and kind of more masculine clothes, and it really just depends how I feel.
How you feel on the day.
And for a long time I hated shopping because I felt like the shops and society were telling me you have to wear a pink bow in your hair, you have to wear a dress and a blouse. And it's taken me a long time to be comfortable with that part of myself and still know that I can identify as a woman and not wear feminine clothes.
And I think probably gender is the thing that has the most stereotypes and pressure to conform about it, really. That part of your identity is still the sort of, and I find it sometimes, started my business and, I made a lot of sacrifices to start my business. And sometimes I think, I'm a bloke of, 36 years old. I should have this and this to my name, or I should have achieved this and this. It's that pressure.
It's more pressure,
more pressure, and you just think, actually, no, who says?
Who says
exactly. I should have done this by this age, or because I'm a man, I should do this? So we've gone a bit off topic, but I knew we would. That's fine. So, I'm wary. We've hired a room for today because I wanted a nice, chilled out space, but we're getting close to kicking out time, so we're going to have to wrap it up a little bit. So, hopefully we've helped you to realise that there are loads of suppliers out there that will help you have a wonderful wedding, fully inclusive, and you can do whatever it wants when you come to your wedding. You can conform to bride and groom norms, or you can do the total opposite. You can walk down the aisle together, you can both wear a suit, you can both wear a dress, you can both wear bikinis, whatever you want to do, you can do. So embrace traditions of traditional weddings. It's a lot of traditions in that sentence. Or go against all of them. It's really, there's no barriers. But one thing I always ask our guests to answer is one thing that she wished someone had told her prior to her own wedding, or a wedding you attended as a guest. So Ava, what do you wish someone had told you before you got married
Okay, I'll make this very snappy, and I won't push the time. So this one's really easy. No one told me before I got married to sit down with my partner and discuss what we wanted as a couple first. So we didn't do that. Obviously, we had the general chit chat.
Yeah.
And, we romanticised about what we wanted, but we didn't actually sit down and make a plan.
Right. Okay.
And really, clear up.
Yeah.
Those things together before we started discussing it with friends and family and colleagues. And then, of course, obligation sets in very quickly, and expectation.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just lost my train of thought.
That's all right.
With that in mind, just getting back on track, with that in mind, I recommend to all couples that they work out what the two of them want first.
Yeah.
Make a list of absolute must-haves, so things that you're not willing to sacrifice,
Yeah.
no matter how much peer pressure you get.
Yeah.
Make a list of ideal wants, so
Yeah.
things that you would like, but you'd be willing to sacrifice if you get to the point where you have to. And then make a list of the traditions that you would like to incorporate and those that you don't want to. So you're clear on that as you approach your friends, family and suppliers.
Definitely.
And your guest list. If you're not inviting children, just decide on that immediately.
Yeah.
And don't be swayed.
Yeah. That's a classic.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So all of that to say that, if you
It's
go
a
into
sense
it
having a strong sense of self, isn't it?
as well.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
if you don't have that, you will get railroaded like I did. And we changed our plans 3 or 4 times.
Brilliant. You've been an absolutely amazing guest. So perfect end to series 1 of the podcast. And, we finally met.
Yes.
It was worth it. It was worth the wait.
Definitely.
So before you go, just share your email and website details and how people can find out all about LGBTQ Equality Weddings.
Sure. So the website is www.lgbtqequalityweddings.com. Very easy. And the email address where you can get to me directly is Ava, which is AVA @lgbtqequalityweddings.com.
Fantastic. And it's a great name because my niece is called Ava, so I knew it was meant to be as soon as I heard your name. So as ever, I am Ross Wilshire, and you can find all my photographic work at www.rosswilshirephotography.co.uk. The book, How to Have a Wedding as Individual as You Are, is available on Amazon UK, Waterstones UK and Barnes & Noble online. Or you can email info@rosswilshirephotography.co.uk if you'd like a signed personalised copy or to discuss anything weddings, wedding photography or podcast related. So get in touch. Thanks again for listening, not just to this episode but to all 10 episodes. Hopefully you have listened to all 10. If not, go back and download them. And we'll be back really soon with lots of other wonderful guests to help you have the wedding of your dreams. So take care for now and happy wedding planning, everybody.
Thanks so much for having me. Bye.
Bye.